My neighbor declared his guests could park in my driveway whenever they wanted, stating, "We have more visitors than you. It's only fair." When I refused, he blocked my car in and taunted, "What are you gonna do about it?" I called a tow truck and smiled, saying, "Your guests can pick up their cars from the impound lot." Moving into my new home in a quiet Portland, Oregon suburb, I was excited about the fresh start. The house was perfect for me, a cozy single-story with a tidy lawn and a spacious driveway. I looked forward to peaceful days in this friendly neighborhood. My neighbor Greg lived next door. He was a middle-aged guy, always in oil-stained overalls, running a car repair business right out of his garage. At first, I didn't mind. Everyone has to make a living, right? But soon, the steady stream of cars and visitors started to wear on me. The real trouble began when Greg's clients started using my driveway. At first, it was just a car slightly over the line, making it a bit tight for me to park. I let it slide, thinking it was a one-time thing. But then, I came home to find a car parked entirely in my driveway. I had to park on the street and walk up to my own house. Frustrated, I went over to Greg's place. He was under a car, tools scattered around. I waited until he noticed me. "Hey, Greg," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "One of your clients is parked in my driveway. Can you ask them to move?" Greg wiped his hands on a rag and shrugged. "We have more visitors than you. It's only fair." I was taken aback. "Fair or not, it's my property. I'd appreciate it if your clients didn't park there." He smirked. "What are you gonna do about it?" That was it for me. The next day, I called a local towing company. They told me that if someone was parked on my property without permission, I had every right to have them towed. Not long after, another of Greg's clients parked in my driveway. I didn't hesitate. I called the tow truck, and they arrived promptly. As the car was being hooked up, Greg came storming over. "You can't do this," he shouted. I looked at him, calm but firm. "Your guests can pick up their cars from the impound lot." After that, Greg's clients stopped parking in my driveway. But Greg was furious. He started revving car engines late at night, leaving oil spills near my property, and having his clients park as close to my driveway as possible without actually being in it. I started documenting everything. I installed security cameras and kept a detailed log of every incident. I even reached out to the local homeowners association. With all the evidence, Greg was eventually served with a cease and desist order. He was warned that any further infractions could lead to fines or legal action. The blatant infraction stopped, but the tension remained. Greg's business suffered due to the increased scrutiny, and he eventually scaled back his operations. While we never became friendly neighbors, at least my driveway was mine again. Looking back, I learned the importance of standing up for myself and documenting everything. It's essential to assert boundaries to maintain peace of mind and protect one's rights. Things calmed down for a little while. Greg kept to himself more, or at least that's how it seemed. I still caught him giving me dirty looks when I pulled into my driveway or took out the trash. Whatever. I wasn't interested in being friends. I just wanted peace. Then, about 3 weeks later, I noticed something weird. My mail was getting soaked, even though my mailbox wasn't damaged. The lid was closed. But every few days, I'd find soggy letters, like someone had poured water in there. At first, I blamed the rain. But the box wasn't leaking. I tested it with a hose, nothing. Then I set up one of my security cameras to point toward the mailbox. 2 days later, I caught Greg walking by with his dog, stopping casually, looking around, then pulling out a water bottle and dumping it into my mailbox. I watched the footage 3 times. He didn't even try to hide it. I saved the video to a flash drive and called the police. They said they'd make a note, but couldn't do much unless it became a regular issue. Still, I let Greg know I had the footage. His reaction? He laughed. "I'm just giving your mail a bath," he said. A few nights later, I was woken up around 3 a.m. by loud banging. I ran to the front window. Someone had dumped garbage bags all over my front yard, food scraps, old car parts, oily rags. The smell was awful. I checked the footage. Of course, it was Greg. Hoodie, but I recognized him by the limp in his left leg and the way he walks. He even looked straight at the camera. This time, I called the police again. They showed up in the morning, took a statement, saw the footage, and went next door. Greg stood there all smug, denying everything. Said I must be doctoring footage. The cop warned him, but again, nothing happened. The next day, I noticed deep scratches on the side of my car. Not light ones, these were deliberate. I was fuming. I filed another report, showed the officer everything. They agreed it was probably him, but with no clear footage of the act, it was just my word. That's when I decided to take things to the next level. I bought 4 more security cameras. I got floodlights. I put a 24/7 surveillance sign in my yard. I even paid for motion sensors that sent alerts to my phone. I wanted every angle covered. I was done playing defense. Greg saw it all. He knew I was serious. But instead of backing off, he started being slicker. He'd send his friends to walk their dogs and accidentally let them poop in my yard. Or stand across the street, staring for long stretches of time. I didn't react. I kept recording. I logged every single thing. Then came the big one. One weekend, I went out of town for my cousin's wedding. I was gone 2 nights. When I came back, my heart dropped. My entire front yard was dug up. Not just the grass plants ripped out, sprinkler heads smashed, dirt piles everywhere. It looked like someone took a backhoe to my lawn. I checked the footage. At 2 a.m. the first night I was gone, Greg and another guy showed up with shovels and trash bags. They worked for hours. He was wearing a hoodie again, trying to hide his face. But again, the limp gave him away. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't some petty prank. This was straight-up vandalism. I called the cops and gave them the footage. This time, they were more serious. They filed a formal investigation, and I got a restraining order. Greg was served 2 days later. He stood on his porch and shouted at me, calling me every name in the book. I stayed inside, watched through the blinds. His face was red, fists clenched. He wasn't just angry now, he was unraveling. The restraining order didn't stop the stares. It didn't stop the noise. He started revving his engine every morning at 5 a.m., sometimes leaving it idling for 30 minutes. He got new clients, ones with big trucks, and they'd park legally but line the street so tightly it felt like a cage. I kept documenting. I sent updates to the police. I filed noise complaints. Greg started losing it, getting sloppy again. Then something happened that changed everything. His car caught fire in the middle of the night. I was asleep when I heard a boom. I looked outside and saw flames coming from his driveway. His old blue Ford was up in smoke. Fire trucks came fast. I stood out on my porch watching. Greg was running around barefoot, screaming at everyone, accusing someone of arson. I just watched. I didn't do it, but for once, I didn't have to lift a finger. He tried blaming me. Said I must have done it to get back at him. But the fire department's report said it was electrical, an old wiring issue. Greg looked defeated when he saw the paperwork. For once, he had no one to blame. The days after that were quiet. Eerily quiet. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. A week after Greg's truck fire, things went dead silent. No loud engines. No trash in the yard. No weird dog poop incidents. It felt too quiet, like that moment in a horror movie when you know something is about to happen. I wasn't relaxing, though. I kept checking the cameras, double-checking the locks, watching out the window more than usual. Then a letter showed up. No return address. Just a single folded sheet of paper inside. Typed. No handwriting. It said, "Hope you like cameras. I hope they help when your brakes fail." I froze. I read it 3 times. My stomach dropped. I wasn't scared easily, but this crossed the line. I drove straight to the police station and handed it over. They said they'd investigate, but of course, they had nothing to go on. No prints. No real evidence. Just my gut feeling, and all fingers pointed to Greg. That same night, I crawled under my car with a flashlight. I don't know what I expected to find. But I saw something. A clean slice in my brake line. Not all the way through, but enough. Just enough to look like wear and tear, but I knew it wasn't. That car had just been serviced a month ago. No way that was coincidence. I took photos, called the cops again. They were more concerned this time, especially with the letter. An officer came out, inspected the car, took my statement. They filed it under attempted tampering, but said without surveillance of the exact moment it happened, it'd be hard to prove. Still, they made note of it. I bought a dashcam the next morning and installed it myself, front and rear views. I started parking in a different spot every day. My coworkers noticed I was tense. I didn't tell them everything, just that my neighbor was being difficult. No one knew how far it had gone. About a week later, the camera caught something. 2:43 a.m. Greg, in a hoodie again, walked up to my driveway. He didn't touch the car this time. He just stood there. Then he turned and walked around to the side of the house. I called the cops right then. They pulled the footage, and this time, finally, something clicked. He'd violated the restraining order by stepping onto my property. They arrested him that same morning. But that wasn't the twist. The real twist came 2 days later when someone tried to break into my house. I was home, watching TV. Heard a soft clink like glass tapping glass. I looked out the back window. A shadow was crouched by the basement window, trying to pry it open. I grabbed my phone, called 911. I stayed inside, quiet, heart pounding. The guy took off when he heard sirens, but the cops chased him down 2 blocks away. It wasn't Greg. It was some guy named Marcus. Early 20s. No ID on him. When they questioned him, he finally admitted Greg had paid him to scare me. Said he offered him $300 to just rattle the windows and mess with the place. Greg was still in holding, so it all came crashing down at once. Now they had enough to press actual charges, witness testimony, prior threats, and the brake line situation. I filed for a full restraining order, not just a temporary one. They kept Greg in custody longer this time. But even then, things didn't stop. About 2 weeks after Greg's arrest, I started getting strange phone calls. Blocked numbers. Static. Breathing. Sometimes a voice whispering my name. I didn't recognize it. I changed my number. It happened again. Then, I noticed a new car parked across the street at night. Different plates each time. Sometimes it was a gray SUV, other times a beat-up sedan. Always running, lights off. Sitting for hours. I reported it to the police. They promised to increase patrols. But nothing ever happened while they were around. I started thinking Greg had someone else still watching me. Or maybe it was someone else entirely, someone who'd heard about what happened. People talk. Word spreads. Maybe someone else hated me now just because Greg told his twisted version of the story. I added another camera. I added a Ring doorbell. I barely slept. I started keeping a bat by the bed. One night, around 4 a.m., I got an alert on my phone. Motion in the backyard. I opened the app. Someone was standing by my fence. Just standing there. Hood up, hands in their pockets, staring right into the lens. Then they walked away. No breaking in. No message. Just presence. I didn't know who it was. It wasn't Greg. I don't know if Greg sent him. I don't even know if it was connected. But everything started with him. My quiet life was gone. The peace I'd moved here for? Shattered. And I knew something else was coming. Something bigger. The night after I saw that person by the fence, I couldn't sleep. I stayed up with the lights off, watching the cameras, phone in my hand, volume up so I'd hear the alerts the second they went off. But nothing happened. Just the wind moving the trees and a stray cat crossing the driveway. Around noon the next day, I got a call from the police. They had Greg. Again. Turns out, the guy who stood by my fence? He was caught 2 neighborhoods over breaking into a shed. He got picked up, and while in custody, he admitted to more jobs Greg paid him for. Greg had been using a burner phone from someone he knew through his old car clients. He'd been calling people, offering cash to follow me, scare me, even slash my tires. Greg wasn't slick. He left trails. Calls, messages, notes. The cops tied it all back to him. They searched his garage and found a folder with screenshots, images of me, of my house, my car, even receipts from a brake repair shop. He had been tracking everything, even after the restraining order. They charged him with stalking, conspiracy, and a laundry list of other stuff. He didn't get out this time. I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. Because here's where I messed up. I had spent so long being paranoid, so long waiting for something to happen, that I turned into someone else. I started digging through records. I started calling people from Greg's past. One guy, an ex-client, told me Greg had sued him years ago for a bad Yelp review. Another neighbor said Greg once slashed his tires over a property line fight. I got obsessed. I found out Greg's brother owned a second home about an hour away. I drove by it. More than once. I never got out of the car, but I took pictures. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until I found myself parked outside Greg's brother's house at 2 a.m. with no reason, just sitting there in the dark. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I wanted revenge. I decided to go through with something I knew was over the line. Greg's house, the one next to mine, had been under code violations for months because of his illegal car repairs. I had all the photos, the noise logs, everything. I turned them all into the city at once, along with the footage of his oil spills leaking into the storm drain. A city inspector came out. Then another. Then an environmental specialist. Greg's property got condemned for multiple violations. The city came in with tape and posted signs. Greg's garage was shut down. His property taxes jumped, and the court added fees for cleanup and damage to public property. His brother, who had co-signed the mortgage, tried to fight it but couldn't. The bank repossessed Greg's house. And then, this part almost didn't seem real. Greg's brother came to me, yelling on my lawn, swearing I ruined their family, that I went too far. He said Greg had a mental breakdown in jail and was being transferred to a psychiatric unit. That's when it finally sank in. Greg was trash, sure. He deserved jail. He deserved the charges. But I had crossed the line too. I let the war turn me into someone who watched another man's house get taken and felt good about it. I didn't feel good anymore. I felt sick. I stood there, listening to his brother scream, and I didn't argue. I didn't fight back. I let him finish and walk away. I knew I couldn't explain that Greg had pushed me too far. That I had been scared. That I had wanted my life back. None of that would have mattered to him. And maybe it didn't matter at all. I won, but it didn't feel like winning. A month later, the bank sold Greg's house. A young couple moved in. They were quiet, friendly, no loud engines, no stairs. I finally slept through the night. But sometimes when I pull into my driveway, I still look over. Out of habit. Half expecting to see Greg standing there, arms crossed, smirking. He's gone. I know that. But a part of me, whatever dark piece came out during all this, still lingers. I stood my ground. I fought back. But in the end, we both lost pieces of ourselves. That's the truth.